Hello and welcome to the video on how to future-proof leaders for the age of AI. My name is Jan and I am the founder and CEO of Leadapreneur. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is my 20 years of experience of how to enable leaders to be great as the world continues to change around them. I'm excited to share this video because I think it's going to be providing with some penetrating insights about what it actually really takes to keep up in the age of AI and make sure that you are ready for the future, or if you're a learning professional, that you are able to enable your talent, your leaders, to be ready for this exciting new future that is emerging. Quick introduction on who we are and what we do. We are a leadership and innovation consultancy based in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. We have clients across the Southeast Asia region, and for 20 years we've been helping great companies here to be able to build innovative leaders who can combine advanced leadership skills with the power of innovation and technology to deliver game-changing outcomes and move themselves and their teams forward into the future. We've been able to develop 60,000 leadapreneurs and delivered over $100 million in measurable ROI on our programs, because I think that's one of the key challenges that actually emerges. How do you know that you've built a good leader? One way to measure that is the amount of is the value they're able to create through the projects they deliver after their training, and you can then measure that value, which is something that we excel in. So if you're interested in building innovative leaders and you're interested in being able to address the challenge of demonstrating ROI for your training programs, reach out to us and let's have a chat. So let's dive in now. So here we are. Welcome to the age of AI. It's extraordinary to be able to say this, but we now live in a world in which intelligence is easily available and affordable and becoming increasingly ubiquitous. Not only that, it's increasingly powerful. It's worth noting that every single human, every professional who came before you right now here in 2025 did not have access to any powerful artificial intelligence. Everyone after you will. It's like electricity. Before, the village had no electricity, and then one day, probably in the last 100 years, that first light bulb went on, and then suddenly night turned into day, machines started working, and you moved into a new age. And so that's really an interesting way, I think, to think about what artificial intelligence really represents. The age of AI represents the arrival of distributed intelligence on demand, in a way in which we now look on electricity as being available on demand by simply being able to plug in a plug or turn on a light switch. Now, in order to be able to understand that, it's useful to break down this term of industrial revolution, because today we are considered to be in what is called Industry 4.0. But in being called Industry 4.0, that also means that there were industrial revolutions that came beforehand. So let's quickly recap what those are so we can have a better context and understanding of the situation we find ourselves in today. An industrial revolution occurs when there's a breakthrough in a new engine technology. It's important to note that industrial revolutions are grounded in a physical engine, something that delivers an orders of magnitude increase in productivity. And that indeed is what Industry 1.0 was all about. The United Kingdom was able to figure out how to harness the power of steam engines by heating them up with coal. And as a result, they were able to produce railroads. They were able to produce the first iron-plated, steam-powered warships. And this enabled that rainy little island in the North Sea to colonize 1/3 of planet Earth. That's the power of an industrial revolution. When you have such an advantage of power and capability, you get far ahead of everybody else. And that, in its time, was called mechanization. Before that, we were living in largely agrarian economies. That meant that people were working with animals and human labor to be able to achieve something. The most powerful thing in the land was probably a windmill, right? Or a large team of horses. And now suddenly you go to having railroads that can pull in a day what a team of horses would not be able to produce, would not be able to haul in a week or even in a month, maybe even a year. So what the Industrial Revolution represents is a massive leap forward in productivity and capability. We go from horses to steam engines, and then we go into the second Industrial Revolution, where the second engine comes along, which is the combustion engine. Whereas the steam engine is about heating water and harnessing the power of steam, the combustion engine is about igniting oil and gas. Specifically, of course, for cars and for aeroplanes, you're now having another leap forward in engine power and productivity and what is indeed possible. You can't, after all, make an airplane running on steam power. The second industrial revolution brought with it electrification and a radical transformation in which the world worked. This was essentially coming from about 1875 to 1950, which then launched us after World War II into the third industrial revolution, which was the age of the computer. One of my favorite little anecdotes to point out is that for most of human history, indeed for millennia, thousands of years, computers were humans. Who was doing all the maths in all those empires all around the world? All the way back to the ancient Egyptians, people were adding things up and making sure the numbers balanced. And they didn't have a handy calculator, electronic calculator next to them. They may have had an abacus, but Industry 3.0 birthed the electronic computer based on silicon chips. And that's where we saw the rise of companies like Intel and the globalized world powered by the computer chip. You can't run global financial systems without the computer. You need faxes at least, and you need to be able to send messages around with emails and things like that. So Industry 3.0, briefly put, talks about the ability of bringing electronics to the mechanical world and using that to create things like television, more advanced radios, amongst many other things. And now, from 1950, another 75 years later, we've arrived in 2025. It's the arrival of Industry 4.0, and again, we have a new engine. This time we're going from the electronic engine, the computer processor, the chip, to artificial intelligence. The AI agent is the new engine. And that is really going to be an extraordinary game changer. Cyber physical systems essentially represents the integration of the digital world into the physical world. So we're going to see things like Tesla's Optimus robot. It's about bringing intelligence and distributing it across the world, so that in your smartphone, you're now able to order food, order a flight, book a hotel in a different country, all at the power of your fingertips. And increasingly, we're going to see these AI agents running everything. Because after all these amazing digital companies that we talk about are run by AI. You cannot run Uber or Grab without artificial intelligence. The final thing I want to note here is that what's supercharging the age of AI is the massive amounts of investment that are going into it. Meta alone, for example, has invested more than $30 to $40 billion so far and has just announced it will announce more. Microsoft has invested over $80 billion, notwithstanding its own investments into OpenAI. And everyone keeps jumping in. Elon Musk and his XAI have made massive investments. And there's also the Stargate project. And that's just from the United States alone, an extra $500 billion. So what's happening is we are supercharging the environment. To give you an idea, America spent about roughly $50 billion US to be able to build the Apollo space program. We're now spending 10x on that just on one data center alone. So the investment of resources is extraordinary. And of course, one of the reasons why this is happening is because those who have superior intelligence will generally have superior advantage. And so this is where we're seeing superpower rivalry in terms of especially China and America, where they recognize that it's a critical advantage to have a stronger artificial intelligence. And that's what's hyper accelerating the age of intelligence today. Massive amounts of resource, a critical desire to gain competitive advantage. And of course, I think a final point that's interesting is that artificial intelligence can train more artificial intelligence. A computer chip cannot make a new computer chip. A tractor cannot make a new tractor. But an AI can train a new AI, which can train a new AI, which can train a new AI. And suddenly now you can suddenly have massive intelligence rapidly scaled in ways that are just extraordinary. Let's dive into the next slide to have some examples of what's already possible here in 2025 with this extraordinary compute and intelligence available on demand. So let's talk about how AI is already changing the world. A great example is Siemens, a large German manufacturer, and they were struggling with having to process so many delivery notes from all their different vendors across Europe and indeed the world. And so what they did is they partnered with an AI automation company called Deep Opinion, and that enabled them to, within just 2 weeks, streamline the processing of these delivery notes, cutting touch points by 90% and increasing accuracy to 98%, and already delivering an ROI of 5 million euros. That's really impressive to be able to achieve that in just 2 weeks. And of course, that's just the beginning. One of my favorite phrases about AI is today is the worst day that AI will ever be. Every day gets better, and not just better, but exponentially better. Unilever, a large European company, worked with HireViewer to redesign their entire hiring system using AI and digital tools. Unilever receives over 1.8 million job applications every year. Can you imagine having to manually process that? I mean, think how many people there are in your city. In Kuala Lumpur, we have 7 million people. So that's just about, say, 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people whose resumes you have to scan, read, check, is this relevant? What role is this for? I mean, it's just such a difficult challenge, right? So what this automation allowed them to do by working with AI is cut the time to hire from 4 months to 4 weeks. What we're seeing there is AI already providing competitive advantage. You're able to respond and reply to candidates much faster without compromising on the quality. This is, of course, a key point. You can reply faster, but maybe you lose the quality there. So it's about maintaining high levels of quality and moving really quickly. That's a game changer there. Of course, the candidates also loved it, and the HR team loved it even more, because now they weren't spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of hours manually screening every CV, and they're able to give much more attention to it. So what we're seeing here is really that AI is powerful in automating these painful processes. That's, I think, really a much more interesting way of thinking about AI. It's not here to take your job or take over the world. It's here to help you remove your manual paperwork, reduce and eliminate the Excel spreadsheet, and help you go into more higher value add processes and value creation activities. A third example is Monzo, a UK digital challenger bank. They have gone through an extraordinary growth journey, scaling from 43 employees to 1,500 employees in 5 years. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's more than 10, 20x growth there. And of course, as you're doing that, how do you make sure you're looking after the culture? How do you making sure in particular that you're managing those performance reviews as you're growing so quickly? Again, there's a lot of opportunity to lose value. So instead, what Monzo Bank did is that they focused on using AI by partnering with a company called Lattice to streamline reviews, boost participation, and give managers powerful tools for feedback, visibility, and accountability. This made sure that the managers were having more conversations and higher quality performance conversations, which in turn has helped Monzo become recognized as one of the top challenger banks in the United Kingdom. So overall, what we're seeing here is a clear pathway where the organizations today, those who get it, are already on it, and they're partnering with these exciting startups, and many of them are now startups. They're not mature AI companies, and they're rapidly accelerating forward. So I share these case studies to really strongly emphasize it's not happening in the future. It's already happened in terms of bringing AI into the workplace. It's already happened. It's not coming. It's already been happening over the last few years. And right now in 2025, we exist at the inflection point where it's going to go dramatically exponential as things like ChatGPT become ubiquitous. But of course, it's not about using a planetary superintelligence to write better emails. It's about creating 10x more value. And that's what I'm going to start going into as we go further into this presentation. Now, one of the things I've noticed is that as we're going forward into this age of AI, the traditional leaders cannot keep up. There is a big gap that's opening up between those who embrace technology, those who are going forward with it, and those who resist technology, who have a fixed mindset and cannot keep up with it. I think this picture beautifully illustrates that. The traditional leaders of the past were riding on are like the knights of old, powerful warriors in their own right, but it's a new age, and today we have giant death robots with lasers who can instantly take out the traditional ways of doing things. Particularly from a talent perspective, one of the things that stands out to me a lot is that traditional leaders have often a weak spirit. They don't have that drive and desire to do things that are difficult. They generally will shy away from caring about building a better world. It's too difficult, it's too risky, it's too complicated. We can't afford to do this. There's a long list of reasons why we shouldn't do it. Whereas we see the forward-thinking leaders, the 21st century leaders, they're innovating and driving things forward. Traditional leaders generally have quite basic skills, especially when it comes to creating skill synergies that create force multipliers and being able to leverage talent and technology. And there's often this sense of a negative, or what we can call fixed mindset, and an unwillingness to embrace change, to move forward and embrace new ways of working, especially by doing that at speed. There's this idea that, we'll do it next year, and then suddenly it's too late. There's also an insufficient expertise. There's often a kind of thinking in traditional leaders that the IT department handle technology, whereas of course artificial intelligence is for everybody at all levels of the organization, and you need to be literate in that. And a final aspect that I think is really important when talking about future-proofing leaders, talking about talent, talking about being at your best, is making sure you're able to look after your health. So this is something I'm going to touch on a little bit later, but I think one of the key reasons why traditional leaders are struggling to keep up is actually that they are not looking after their own health and the health of their own teams. And as a result of that, they're not able to achieve sustained high performance. So I've talked about some of the challenges that traditional talent is facing as we embrace this age of AI. And before I deep dive into future-proofing, I want to emphasize why I think future-proofing matters. And that fundamentally is about the simple ideas. You can't lead tomorrow's world with yesterday's tools. As we move forward into the new industrial revolution, the age of AI, it's a radically different reality. And that's why I shared that, that diagram with you at the beginning, to emphasize that as we move into Industry 4.0, it's a whole new rule set. It's not about learning how to ride a horse very well. We're now in the age of the EV. And to kind of use that analogy, you have to upgrade your whole skill set, your whole mindset, your whole approach to things if you wish to survive and thrive in this new age. I think one of the compelling reasons why you want to future-proof your leaders and indeed future-proof yourself, it's about unleashing the potential. It's about delivering 10x or more increases in performance. One of my favorite quotes is from Mark Zuckerberg, in which he talks about the fact that a great developer, a great engineer is 100x more effective than an average engineer. So what he's saying there is one good person is better than 100 average people. That's really big numbers, right? But that's the reality we're in today. And as we go into the age of AI and great talent leverages great artificial intelligence in extraordinary ways, we're seeing an explosion in salaries. Recent news has reported that Meta is trying to offer millions of dollars and being rejected. Imagine being offered a salary of $2 to $3 million and turning it down because you have better prospects somewhere else. It's really an extraordinary time. And one of the things I think that's super important to recognize is that one of these is this approach that often in organizations, 80% of the value is created by 20% of people. So you really want to focus on that top 20%. I actually think it's the top 30%, because that gives you a 10% buffer in terms of people cycling in and out of the organization and all kinds of challenges there. If you focus on your top 30%, you can make sure that your top 20% are absolutely secure and you have a buffer zone of people who are filtering in and out of that top 20%. Of course, as we talk about the age of AI, people are afraid of being replaced. They're afraid that they are going to be taken over by AI, made redundant and kicked out on the street. And the sad reality is that that will happen to some people. However, what needs to happen in a more mature way is to be able to address this fear of being replaced. And I think a good example of that is Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young has been quietly working hard to integrate artificial intelligence into their organization, and now report that they have 300,000 human professionals and 200,000 AI agents working alongside those. So think about the kind of culture that will be creating, where you're normalizing working with an AI, even groups of AIs, in order to be able to deliver your outcome as an auditor. So it's about stepping forward into the challenge of AI and how it's replacing old ways of working, and inviting and encouraging leaders to step up and level up their abilities to embrace new ways of working and chase that productivity frontier, and of course remove all the boring, difficult work. Finally, it's about realizing that at a foundational level, I think as we go forward into the age of AI, we're going to see that as people generally will have access to the same amounts of money and they'll have access to the same technology, roughly, I believe the real edge and advantage lies in talent and in culture. What that means is it's about building great people and a great environment around them to fully unleash their potential. A great example of this is Netflix, who are widely known for many years to have relentlessly focused on developing and attracting the best talent. As they describe it in their famous culture document, if you just search for Netflix culture document, you'll see an outstanding PowerPoint presentation, which is not something that's often said, but I highly recommend you have a look at it, because it talks about their approach to building the best people, the best leaders, and the best culture in the world. That can be summarized with this quote: "We're like a pro sports team, not a kids' recreational team. Netflix leaders hire, develop, and cut smartly, so we have stars in every position." What that means is you're actively realizing that by future-proofing your leaders, you have an opportunity to build significant competitive advantage. And if you continue that future-proofing, you're able to build a sustained advantage, because your leaders are simply smarter, faster, stronger, better, more capable than the competition. And that's how you really stay ahead. So as we think about future-proofing, well, how do we actually think about it? What does it even mean to future-proof a person? And that's where I've developed this idea of what I call inner technology and outer technology. As you can see in this excellent diagram in front of you, outer technology represents the outer world. It represents the device that you're viewing this from. It represents cars, roads, infrastructure, blockchain, everything basically outside of you. But as we rapidly develop the outside world, we also need to rapidly develop the inside world. So what actually is that? Well, in the outer world, we have things like artificial intelligence, we have blockchain, we have robotics, data infrastructure, augmented reality and virtual reality interfaces, and we're going to see that becoming even more exciting as we go forward. Now, whereas AI is about intelligence, amplification, automation, blockchain, trustless systems, and decentralization, robotics are focusing on physical automation and augmentation of human potential and capability. Data infrastructure is looking at building sensors, cloud, analytics, and running the whole thing at scale, while of course humans are interacting with all these extraordinary AR, VR interfaces. What's going on in here? What's going on in here? How are we making this all work, right? How do we upgrade the inner space, the inner talent stack is what I call it. We want to build a better world, but to build a better world, we also first need to build better humans. And that's where we're at great risk of falling behind. It's not simply about knowing more things. It's very naive to think that knowledge is going to solve everything, because knowledge is, as we're going to discover later, just a small part of the overall solution. We need to take a holistic approach to looking at a human being, and we need to identify 5 key areas. The human spirit, which is about purpose, courage, and willpower. We need to look at that person's skill set, and we need to look at their mindset. We need to look at their expertise, and we need to look at their health. Why? Mindset is how we perceive and respond to reality. With the wrong mindset, we're not going to be able to keep up with the world around us. If we lack the skills to engage with the world, how can we participate? How can we effectively create? If we lack the expertise to be able to use good judgment and to be wise in our strategy and decision making, we will make poor choices that will catch up with us later on very quickly. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, health. Health is critical for sustaining a great human being. You can't be a great leader if you have really poor health. It's just not going to be sustainable. So let's dive in and explore how to build a better human by upgrading their inner talent stack. So the first thing I believe that we should start with, and this is something I say now very confidently after 20 years of doing this, it's all about your spirit. What is spirit? How do you talk about spirit in the professional world? Does it matter? Absolutely it matters. Spirit is the critical differentiator between great leaders and people who can't lead at all, who are just average leaders. Spirit is the drive to build a better world for the people you care about. It means that there are people you actually care about, that you're driven to want to build a better world for them, and you're willing to do that in the face of adversity, that you focus on building the better world, not saying, it'd be nice to build a better world, but it's a bit difficult, isn't it? Let's just give up. That is not what spirit is all about. We need leaders who have strong spirit, but let's break it down in terms of thinking about what happens if you don't have a strong spirit. Well, those who have a low level of care and those who have a low level of competence generally are checked out. They don't care and they can't deliver results. They are basically dead weight for you and your organization. People who have high competence but don't engage the heart, so they have the head but not the heart, these are going to be technically brilliant people, but their emotional absence means that they can deliver results, but they can't lead teams, they can't lead outcomes, they can't engage and mobilize human spirit to adapt to change, and they can't inspire people to rise up to the challenges that they face. On the other hand, we have people who really do care. They're awake, they're engaged, they want to do things, but they don't have the skills yet. This is the kind of person I love to work with, because those people just need some training, coaching, and development, and sometimes some firm challenging to be able to rise to greatness. And so one of the real challenges is actually how you combine care and competence. How do you develop someone who is really competent and who really cares? Because that's where you have the magic. This is where you have a strong spirit. These people both care and deliver, they drive innovation, they proactively solve tough problems. They're the kind of people who do enough and then ask, what's next? How can we go forward? So to help you kind of understand this concept of spirit, skill set, your skills is what you can do, your mindset is how you think about doing it, but your spirit is why you do it in the first place. Spirit is what drives purpose, is what drives you to want to go and do things. And if you face difficult challenges and you have a weak spirit, a weak sense of purpose, you're just going to give up and you're not going to be very effective. So spirited talent, spirited leaders, they seek out challenges, they don't wait to be told what to do. And spirit is particularly important because it's something that's within the human themselves. It's a human technology and capability. AI doesn't have spirit. You can have the most advanced AI on planet Earth, but if your leaders don't have spirit, it's useless because they're not going to be able to work with that AI and translate its capabilities into tackling difficult problems and creating value along the way. So I think a cool way to think about spirit is it's kind of the ignition system. It's like the spark plug in the engine. It's sparking all that potential and making sure that you're driving yourself forward to do difficult things. The second thing you need to do to future-proof yourself after strengthening your spirit is to level up your skills. One of the most important concepts that we have of Leadapreneur is that we can integrate skills. It's not about being a leader or a manager or indeed an entrepreneur or intrapreneur. It's about being a leaderpreneur. And leaderpreneurs are able to combine advanced leadership skills, management skills, and entrepreneurship skills. What that means is, as entrepreneurs, they can innovate inside the organization. And that's the key point. It's not about being an entrepreneur, it's about being an intrapreneur. In this society, maybe 5% of humans are successful entrepreneurs. 95% of people are employees and will remain that way. And so it's about creating innovation inside the organization. So you're able to create, but just because you can create doesn't mean people are going to follow you. You're working inside an organization, so you need to be able to inspire and empower your stakeholders and supporters to rally around your cause and follow you forward into the future. Now, of course, as you're creating and leading, you need to deliver results, and that's why management is such an important skill. The transition from manager to leaderpreneur is not removing management skills, it's enhancing your management skills with the addition of leadership and entrepreneurship skills. Now, I kind of think of those three as the foundation of the leaderpreneur. And then collaboration skills and communication skills are the force multipliers. By being able to work in a collaborative environment, you're able to create force multipliers in terms of people being able to deliver success. It's a sort of 1 + 1 = 3 kind of reality, but at scale. Collaboration is also what drives agility. By being able to quickly share information with each other, you can rapidly respond to change. And communication is perhaps the highest skill of all. It's a good way of being able to understand if people understand skills when they understand how important communication skills are. Because after all, storytelling is reality itself, and the stories that you tell define what people believe is possible and indeed what is even going on. So what you want to do is you want to develop these 5 skills to a very high level of competency. It's not just about being a leader or being creative or a good communicator. You need all 5 skills, and you need to be able to integrate them and harness them into a competency capability. One of the things I really advise on is beware of what I call methodological entrapment. That you say, oh, I know Agile. Yeah, okay, you know Agile, but that's one methodology. Or I know Six Sigma, or I know Lean. Or these are methodologies. These are actually under the management category. What kind of leadership skills and capabilities and methodologies do you know? Are you a transactional leader, transformational leader? Do you use complexity leadership? Do you use quantum leadership? Do you use servant leadership? There's so many different types out there. The point is that you need to be literate in what the kind of leadership style is that's relevant to you. So don't get stuck in one. Expand your horizons, understand the different methodologies in these 5 key areas. I also want to focus on the point, it is these 5 areas, right? You might say this critical thinking, they're all subsections of these 5 skills. After 20 years, I can tell you these are the 5 foundational skills of an Industry 4.0 professional. Focus on developing these to future-proof yourself for the age of AI. Thirdly, it's about cultivating a Genesis mindset, the belief that you can build your better world using the power of innovation. A Genesis mindset is distinct from a growth mindset, which again is distinct from a fixed mindset. I've developed the concept of the Genesis mindset because I believe it's not enough to have a growth mindset. A growth mindset is foundationally about being able to learn and grow. Whereas a fixed mindset says, I am what I am, and I'm just going to stay this way. I can't change. My identity is fixed. I resist things because I need to protect myself. I feel vulnerable, and essentially, I'm operating at an egoic form of consciousness. The growth mindset takes you to the edge of the ego. It allows you to say, I can become better. If I put in some effort, I can learn and grow. And that's really something that's exciting to be able to achieve, because you've now gone from someone who can't change to someone who can change. You're willing to embrace challenges and learn from failures to become better and better. You're using technology to improve yourself, and you're expanding your identity of who you think you are and what you think you can achieve. However, that is not going to be enough in the age of AI. I believe what we have to now develop is a Genesis mindset. Building on the pioneering work of Carol Dweck and her growth mindset, it's about developing individuals who have the mindset of saying, I believe I can build a better world. Because this is the critical point about mindsets. It's about believing that you can build a better world. What you want to do is you want to solve problems to help others and make things better. Essentially, whereas the growth mindset was about building a better you, the Genesis mindset is taking that learning of a better you and expressing it out into the world and saying, let's make the world a better place. Not the world, actually, let me be specific, it's your world. It's about making your world better, focusing on your local reality, your area of work, your team, your department, your customers, your family, your community, whatever it might be. Don't think about changing the big wide world. It's very overwhelming. Focus instead on yourself and using the power of innovation and technology to create that kind of change, because that's what's so special and exciting. It's about realizing that we have the force multipliers now available that are able to make the impossible possible. Ultimately, the Genesis mindset can express itself as this simple mantra that we've developed at Leadapreneur. Believe in yourself, be brave, be bold, be brilliant, build your better world. By believing in these 5 things, by believing in yourself that you are the agent of change, not someone else, by being brave in terms of taking responsibility, by being bold in the vision that you set, and being brilliant in the actions that you take to pursue your vision, you can go forth, and by being ethical, you are able to build a better world. So we talked about future-proofing leaders in the sense of making sure they have a strong spirit. We've talked about it in terms of making sure they have an advanced skill set. And then we've talked about cultivating a Genesis mindset. So here we're upgrading the inner human, the talent stack. Now, the 4th point is about building what I call deep domain expertise. In the age of AI, we are operating with an omniscient planetary superintelligence that knows everything, right? It's a know-it-all, already knows everything. AI already knows everything, right? AIs literally know the entire internet and beyond, right? They've scanned and researched everything exhaustively. One of the challenges for AI today is that there's no unique data sets because they've been trained on everything that we already have. So that's where we have to learn from the work of Dr. Russell Ackoff, where he talked about the differences between knowledge, understanding, wisdom. And so I can present his really critical work to you here. Knowledge is about knowing what things are. And that's really where AI is very strong at. It knows everything, but does it understand how to imply it? Is it able to critically look at its knowledge and say, actually, that's maybe not quite correct, right? We know that AI hallucination is a problem, but again, AIs hallucinate, but guess what? So do humans, right? So it's a challenge around the function of knowledge. Knowledge is essentially a description of what things are. So you know lots of things. So if I do a marketing degree, I know what marketing is and I've learned about marketing, but that doesn't mean I understand how to create a marketing campaign to generate $1 million. Right? And the evidence of understanding lies in the outcome, right? Whereas so today we have a lot of know-it-alls. There's a lot of knowledge flying around. People have opinions about things, so-called experts. But there's relatively little understanding of actually how to translate all this knowledge into real effective outcomes. And that's why we need humans and professionals who are in the reality itself, those on the front line who understand the reality of their customer, maybe the reality of the logistics involved in different challenges, and actually are able to bring together a real solution in often very challenging circumstances. So knowledge is about what something is, understanding is how to do it effectively. And AI doesn't really understand. It mimics understanding. It shows that it understands. But if you challenge its understanding, it will very quickly change it, and often it's never really held accountable to its results. And that's really where we go to the highest level of all, which is wisdom. Wisdom is defined as effective long-term decision-making. By being wise, you earn trust and respect, and that's really the critical power of a leader. A leader is trusted, they are respected, and they are followed because people believe in them to lead them forward into the future through the chaos, through the uncertainty, and into the better world that is promised. AI can offer wisdom, but as it told me in my preparation for this work, it said, the problem is, Jan, I don't care about the consequences. So it can give you wise advice, but if it ruins your life, it's not going to care, right? So wise leaders are accountable for the wisdom that they give, and that's a critical element in the feedback loop of being an effective leader. So overall, what this means is that to be able to be an effective leader, future-proofing yourself going forward, it's not about knowing lots of things. You need to develop your understanding and become even wiser than you already are in order to make sure you secure yourself in the future. Because as everyone has AI that knows lots of things, the challenge is going to be how do we translate this into effective outcomes. Finally, it's about being a healthy high performer. What this is about is realizing that in the age of AI, the way in which you know you're being effective, and ultimately my case to you of how to future-proof yourself, is to figure out how to 10x your results. If you're a sales leader and you're currently doing $1 million, how do you get to $10 million? If you are running a business, how do you cut the costs by 90%? How are you able to deliver massive increases in performance? That's what AI is all about. It's about harnessing the power of AI to do the impossible. Now, in order to take on that challenge, you and your team are going to face severe adversity. Of course, it's going to be really hard. So in order to make sure you can make it through that adversity, you need to focus on your health. And we've identified 5 key areas of health. These are your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, your social health, and your spiritual health. What do they mean? Your mental health is the power of your mind. Can you make sure you're focused? Are you clear under pressure? Do you have powerful cognitive agility, or are you sinking into depression and becoming increasingly unhappy? Speaking of unhappiness, how is your emotional health? Emotional health is about being able to be resilient. You're not reactive. You're self-aware. You're managing your stress. So that, yes, you will get stressed, but you know how to unstress yourself, right? And you are able to create what we can call good vibes. So by having great mental health and great emotional health, you lay a strong foundation for tackling the challenges of the age of AI. But of course, these are all theoretical ideas because it's all happening within this body, or dare I say avatar, in which you actually have a physical body that has energy requirements and also requires you to have an ability to deliver every day. So managing your physical health is a critical element as well. It's a healthy body leads to a healthy mind, leads to a healthy heart. Your social health is about your ability to work with other human beings. Can you trust and collaborate with other people? Do they trust you? Are you able to exert influence? So having a positive social health is about going beyond you and making sure that your social networks are healthy for you. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with, and that's really about making sure you have healthy relationships around you to be able to succeed in your ambitions. Finally, spiritual health is about your sense of purpose and meaning in life. Are you adhering to your values? And are you pushing yourself forward into the future in a way that generates positivity, that generates meaning, that inspires you to be great? So ultimately what this slide is about, and this point here, is that future-proofing isn't just about upskilling the brain. It's about realizing that there's a whole human there, and it's strengthening the human behind performance. By setting a high standard for ourselves, we want to 10x results. We paint a clear picture of where we need to go, and then what we need to do is say, let's use our health systems to help us get there. So in the end, we need to future-proof our leaders, and the reason why we need to do that is we need to keep up with the accelerating age of AI. What I presented to you in this video is that you need to conduct a full stack upgrade. The full stack upgrade really integrates the 5 capabilities of becoming what I call the leaderpreneur, the innovative leader who is autonomous and uses advanced digital tools to be able to build a better world. The leaderpreneur has a strong creative spirit. They care about using innovation to build a better organization. They have a skill set that allows them to rapidly adapt to change. They can create, lead, and manage change, as well as communicate and collaborate with their colleagues. You need to build the Genesis mindset that allows you to become resilient. You're someone who believes in themselves. You're brave and bold and brilliant as you go forth to build your better world. In terms of building an expertise, you understand how to innovate in complex chaos by tapping into your understanding and wisdom, not merely relying on knowledge. And finally, you're a sustainable high performer because you're managing your health to consistently deliver great results. In other words, you're daring to 10x. Thank you for listening to me. My final message to you is, as we go forward in the age of AI, dare to be great, become a leaderpreneur.